friends, this is Anna Bruno Dobramagian coming to you from Yerevan, Armenia. I'm in the offices of Thrive Armenia Foundation, and I'm extremely excited to present to you some of our team members, I should say, the core team members of Thrive Armenia Foundation, as well as Get Skills Academy.
I'm very much interested to learn and to discuss and to raise up different issues related with personal growth and business development, especially for women.
Why did I decide to become part of Get Skills Academy is that I believe that being highly skilled is very important in order to survive in our modern world. And like with my colleagues, I completely agree that it is very important to help women in Armenia as well as worldwide to overcome certain issues that have been created in the society.
Thank you so much, and we're so pleased and so proud. I'm so proud of our team.
Before joining Thrive Armenia Foundation, as part of my training programs at my training center, which was called AFT, and later on Cross-Cultural Communication Club, I personally have been communicating with different groups, different aged and social groups of women. And their main purpose of coming to the center was so-called learning English and foreign languages to improve their personal skills and professional skills, to become more independent and financially independent. And here there was a very interesting warning message to me. What was hidden behind that? As it turned out later, it was not just learning English or improving your language skills. Women were absolutely, worried, concerned about their future lives, because they all, if not 90%, a little bit less, maybe 85% of women coming and joining the center had the same big problem. They wanted to divorce their husbands and to become financially sustainable, independent, which was at that time almost impossible in Armenia. As a result,
how long ago was this?
it was like some 20 years ago.
Okay. So basically what you're saying, which is what I see here, is not much has changed. Because now
a lot has changed actually.
Okay,
women
that's
are more
hear.
independent today, and financially they can find their preferred
Yeah, but
jobs.
then I just tell you something. This is like hits home for me because I'm here, I'm visiting a lot of different people. Some are like locals, some are people who moved here from other countries. And what's really sad, really sad, as a woman, as a mother who has a daughter, it's hard for me to see and hear that even now, today, we still have women who don't have complete independence, and it's the same issue. You know how at this conversation that women who would love to divorce her husband, but for various reasons they choose not to, even though they're not being treated properly, they're not being loved properly, they're not being respected properly, but they're still choosing to remain in this loveless, unhealthy relationship. And it's just crazy that 20 years ago now, it's like hopefully some things have changed.
Let me tell you my experience. At the first look, when you look at the problem, it seems like it has to deal with financial independence and a lack of financial independence. But then you realize that it's a mindset. It's a mentality. It's a matter of low esteem and lack of self-confidence.
Wow.
It's not that they don't have jobs or they cannot find jobs. The problem is that they don't realize that they are able to find jobs and they can do it. They don't believe in themselves. And once you talk to them, start working with them, training them, they realize that what is the problem? What are the obstacles that they keep them back from being independent? Maybe there is a social opinion, the society stereotypes, but fortunately a lot has been changed since 20 years ago, and women today are much more open to learn, to work on their self-personal development. They make career not only in Armenia, outside of Armenia, traveling a lot. I would suggest, guys, you tell your experience or opinions, maybe how it is in the United States. You've been living in Bulgaria
And other countries.
Yeah, or maybe the countries you toured. This is very interesting. The good progress in Armenia is that the young generation realizes that change can happen in their life. This makes me really happy. Like my mother's generation, they would never accept any change. They would get along with what they've got, that's it. I mean, no changes, no positive changes. But there is another very dangerous issue. Not always independent women are the happiest ones, you know. We should not, there's a very fine line between being independent, being
But those are
successful.
two different things, Christina. Being happy and being
No, I as
independent
a
are
woman.
not necessarily, they're two different things. Like you said,
You know, Anna John, there are some women, which is absolutely unacceptable for me. They are happy even with being a victim because they don't see there are other options, alternatives. And if you take them, if you train them to ask them to become more independent, they would not do that because the happiness in their mind is a certain, concept which has to do a lot of, it's related with education, family values, social values. So this is very interesting to compare. How is the situation now in the United States?
Well, let's start with Bulgaria
Or
and
maybe
China.
Bulgaria, yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you my opinion. But I'm curious to know,
Especially young women.
Yes. First of all, my question is like, there's so many women, Armenian women, who have low esteem, no self-esteem or low self-esteem. They don't believe that they can do things. And then I look at you, and it's a shining example that's you can make things happen, right? So why? Why is it that you achieved so many things? Why is it that you chose to go get educated? Why is it that you were able to go and live in London or China or Russia or wherever? Why is it that, what do you think is the reason? What makes you different than all the other Armenian women who are not doing what you have done? We'll start from there and then tell us about how things are in Bulgaria and China and so on.
Well, I think that Christina gave some really good points when it comes to the self-esteem and also the victim mentality and how they stay in that comfort zone. I think it's very important to always remember that yes, the women are Armenian, but also the psychology of the human is more or less the same everywhere. By living in other places, I've met women who, yes, they grew up in very open societies where women are strong and so on and so forth, but yet they still suffer from whether it's victim mentality or low self-esteem. This was in France, this was in England, this is women that I've talked to all over the world. This is something that we see everywhere. So this is not just a location-based issue and not necessarily generation-based issue, because there's also, it's about human issue, I would say, as well, just as well as female issue and Armenian issue. The difference with me is, this is the question of nature and nurture, for example, as well. So how did I become confident, or why did I choose to go to places that were difficult to live in? I think that part of it is my own personality, just the type of person that I am. And I think it starts from little things. When you teach young girls to do things, to battle for themselves from a young age, I think eventually they know more or less that they can do it. For example, when I went to Bulgaria, obviously I was 3 years old, and I grew up in a foreign society, so I was a foreigner. And as a foreigner, you do get a different treatment in other countries. And I was the oldest one in my family, and I had a little sister, so these little things of being able to protect yourself or stand up for yourself is something I learned from a very young age. And also I came from a family where I have strong parents, and my dad always taught me to stand up for myself. So these two things are important.
You don't have a brother.
So I'm the oldest in the entire
So
generation.
in a way, they were like, I guess, I don't know, because you didn't have a brother, they were like treating you as if you were like, the son and the daughter that they didn't have. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe yes and no. I mean, I was never told that all I need to do is finish school and go get married. That was not an option in my household. In my household, my parents wanted me to be educated. So when I was 14 years old and I asked my father that I want to go abroad and study in a boarding school, I was greeted with a positive outcome. And I think that's very important. It's very important that we allow our children to develop in places that they want to develop also. Something that Armenians have in common with other cultures, for example, is that mentality that the parents say that you have to study economics, math, and, for example, things that back in the days brought a lot of money and were secure, like medicine or engineering. the plus that we live in the modern age, it's both a plus and a minus. The whole social media influence, it can be bad, but it can also be good, because there's a lot of people out there and a lot of women who speak about things such as self-confidence and issues, and if we listen to them and we go back and we think about our own issues and we work through them, we can eventually become very strong individuals. But this has to happen through love and not through self-criticism.
You said something really, really important that I want to sort of highlight, which was that parents don't cheer, not just parents, it's a society, teachers, but most importantly parents, they don't cheer enough to their children. And I can even see that in my own family. I'm not afraid to talk about it because I see it even with my own children, that sometimes as parents we think it's our job to teach them and correct them, and it's like when you look at it and you're correcting them 80% of the time. And yes, you can correct, but you know what, at the end of the day, people learn from their mistakes, and to cheer them, I think, is so important. So one thing I want all of the women especially, or everyone, men, women, but anybody who's listening to us, if you could just please just remember this one thing. If you have children or you have loved ones, cheer them, acknowledge their positive energy, acknowledge their anything that they have that is is a strength of theirs, because we all need that as human beings. I mean, we all do. And I look back in my own life, because now I live in the US, and there's such different cultures. Not just every country has a different culture, but because I live in the US, I can only compare New York to Armenia, right? And one thing that I just cannot get over is, in our world, in the US, we always, first of all, we constantly, I tell my children 100 times a day that I love them. They know that I love them. But I think it's important to acknowledge, that I love them, or you're proud of them. And I remember as a child growing up in our family, and again, it could be just my own family, I can't speak for the entire Armenian society, but I don't remember ever. I know my parents loved me, I know my grandmother loved me, she took care of me, did everything for me. But I don't ever remember she telling me, I love you.
You don't forget we're a generation of Soviet Union, Soviet times, and criticizing, it was completely different. The same was with my family. I mean, I know they adored me, they loved me very much. I was playing piano, I was singing, I was a leader by nature, by the way. And we guys are lucky to be born leaders. And which doesn't necessarily mean that all women, all ladies can become leaders, but we should at least give them a chance to change their minds. But coming back to the topic, I would like just to underline one important thing. Often talking to women, Anna, Marie, I hear the following. The greatest happiness for me is to be loved, to love and being loved, and being appreciated. But when you go into deeper to the problem, then you realize, number one, they themselves do not love their personality, do not appreciate themselves enough. And how can you come to expect the other people to love or appreciate you when you don't have this self-esteem, self-appreciation,
and self-love?
Besides, one of the most important topics that I would strongly recommend we discuss next time is self-disclosure, like revealing your own abilities. There are certain tools, games, interactive, training tools, when you help women reveal themselves, their personal abilities that they have never known before. Self-acknowledgement. Even in the Bible, it starts, know
thyself.
Yeah,
Socrates also
exactly. So maybe we can start doing some workshops like these, and summarizing what I was just trying to introduce about women's issues. Being loved or love. But the other question is, do you deserve that love? How much do you give?
But I think everyone deserves love.
No.
Really?
In personal relationships, you cannot always hurt people and then expect them love you, to love you.
And I think
that's what I'm trying. Of course, being a person, God is love, and we are part of Him, and as a created by God, we must be part of love, and when we love and be loved. But it's a matter of interpersonal relationships. Sometimes people do not remember, do not treat others nicely, they don't care for others, they hurt always, they offend them, and as a result they expect the others to love and appreciate them. Find out what is the problem in me that people treat me like this instead of always blaming or condemning the other. That was my previous experience. That was I'm always trying to do. Even when I fail as a woman, as a mother, which is very natural, as a worker, I'm always trying to look inside and to see what was my fault, what was from my side. I think this is the most important thing we should try to teach young generation, and this creates, as an outgrow, we get interpersonal tolerance, respect, mutual understanding. These are not just words, and this all together leading to peace, which is the #1 problem today all over the world. So achieving internal and external peace.